going today? Today we're going to talk about how to get your ticket dismissed in the state of Virginia. Okay? Again, this is the state of Virginia and how to beat a radar detector speeding ticket that you may have received somewhere in the state of Virginia. Alright? So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about what to do when you get pulled over. Secondly, we're going to talk about after you've received your ticket, what you should do. Then we're going to talk about preparing for your trial, and then we're going to talk about the possible outcomes of your trial. Okay, so if you're watching this video, you probably don't just want to pay the fine. You probably don't just want to give the officers of the court your hard-earned money. You don't want the insurance to skyrocket. You don't want to have those points on your license that could ultimately cost you a suspension in the near future. So you're looking for ways to beat this ticket. Maybe you don't have the money. Maybe you just want to stick it to the man. Maybe you weren't actually speeding, which is fine. Any of those reasons are why you should be watching this video. Alright, so what to do when you get pulled over by an officer. We'll start there. Alright, so you've been pulled over. The cop comes up with the car. He asks you for your registration, your license, and your proof of insurance. You're going to hand that stuff over to the officer. Okay? Always try to make sure it's somewhere that you can get to it, but do not reach for it until the officer asks you for it. Again, do not reach for it until the officer asks you for that information. One thing that I do is when I get pulled over, I take my keys out of my car, I put them on my roof of my car, or I put them on the dashboard. I do that just to kind of let the cop know that I'm not going to run anywhere, I'm not going to drive off. He doesn't have to worry about having to chase me down or me eluding the cops. Okay? Next, the cops usually ask a series of questions. Alright? The questions will go something like, do you know how fast you're going? Where are you going? Do you know why I stopped you? Any of those questions. Alright? Some people think that by telling the officer the honest truth, that the officer will sympathize with them and let them out of a ticket. That is wrong. That is the absolute thing you do not want to do. Okay? However, you don't want to lie to the officer either. Okay? Because that will tick the officer off and make him try to give you more tickets. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to use your Fifth Amendment right to not say anything. Okay? You want to say the least amount of things as possible, but you want to be respectful about it. So if the officer asks you, hi, do you know why I pulled you over? Say, no, officer. That's it. That's all you have to say. He says, do you know how fast you were going? You say something like, I believe I was driving at a safe and reasonable speed. Okay? Where are you going? I'm going home. That's it. Okay? You don't want to give him any extra information that he might use against you in court. It's pretty simple. Just keep it to a minimum. Let him either give you your ticket or not give you your ticket. In my experience, the officer generally knows before he gets out of his car if he's either going to give you a ticket or not give you a ticket. Now, I have seen some officers who will sympathize. That's very rare. I have seen some girls put some really crazy tricks out. They'll start crying, maybe unbuttoning their shirt, or say something about the period, and that works sometimes. But I can't use those excuses, and I refuse to cry, and I'm not going to unbutton my shirt for an officer. Sorry, it's just not going to happen. So I'm just nice, respectful. You want to be memorable, but you also want to be forgetful at the same time. You want the officer to remember, man, this guy was nice. You want him to write that on his ticket, but then you want him to forget you. You don't want him to be thinking about your case. You don't want him to know that you're going to be fighting your case. So be nice, be respectful. Either get your ticket and move on, or you won't get a ticket and then you move on as well. Okay? Okay, here's where the fun kicks in. The officer takes your ID, your registration, and insurance. He goes back to his car, he runs the information, he decides that now he's going to give you a ticket because he's clocked you on radar speeding, and he's going to write you a summons for this. Okay? Now, when the officer comes back to the car, he's going to hand you the ticket, and he's going to ask you to sign it. He's going to read you some of the ticket, read you your options, ask you to sign it. Before you sign the ticket, okay, take out your camera phone, take out any audio device or any visual device you have that has a recording on it, and you want to record. You should already be recording, but if you're not, you want to definitely start recording this part now, okay? you are going to demand for an immediate hearing within 24 hours of the court. Okay? Again, you are going to respectfully demand to have your court date or hearing within 24 hours. Okay? This is your right by law. According to Virginia Code 46.2-936, you have the right to demand a hearing immediately or within 24 hours after receiving a traffic citation. Okay? 9.9 times out of 10, the officer will not write you the ticket for the following day. That's fine. That's completely fine. You want him actually not to write you this ticket at all. Okay? You want him to make the court date out as far as possible. But you're going to demand it be within 24 hours. Then when he says no, you're going to say, okay, fine. But you at least have it on tape that you asked and you respectfully demanded your hearing within 24 hours. We're going to then use this evidence later when we go to trial. All right? All right, so you demanded for your trial date to be within 24 hours. Officer said no. You're going to sign the summons. All right? Before you leave the scene, you're going to jump out of your car, if possible and if safe. You're going to get out of your car and you're going to take pictures of the area. You're going to take pictures of the traffic conditions, any road or speed signs that they may have, whether or not you're near airport, or anything that can help you with your surrounding, where the officer was sitting, and any kind of information like that that you may be able to use in court. You're going to take this information down because this is all going to add to your defense when defending yourself against this radar detector speeding ticket that you received. Okay? All right. Now, you're driving away from the scene. Okay? You're kind of pissed about your ticket, but don't worry about that. Most of the time, the tickets are at least a month and a half, 2 months out. So don't worry too much about this now. However, when you have some free time, you want to start preparing for your case. Okay? Look at the ticket and know when your court date is. Depending on how serious the offense is, in Virginia, if you miss your court date, they will issue a capias out for your arrest. Okay? So next time you get pulled over, it's automatic, go to jail. There's no get out of free card, it's automatic, go to jail, and then they take you for your arraignment. Then they decide whether to release you on bond or your own recognizances. Alright? So don't miss your court date. If your court date doesn't work for you or it's not suitable for you, or you just want to prolong the court date to prepare more time for your defense, go to the actual court and ask for a continuance. Alright? Some judges may give it to you, some may not, but you won't get it unless you ask. A lot of the times you can call the court ahead of time and ask for a continuance to a different day, or you can write a letter to the court asking for a continuance, but you have to give them time. You can't write a letter or call the day of and ask for a continuance. Okay? Give them some time. Give them at least 10 days notice to hear something, and if they deny you, you will make sure that you won't miss your court date. Okay? Alright, now it's time to prepare your defense for the actual day in court. Alright, so remember how earlier I told you to get out of the car, take as many pictures as possible, right? So you have that evidence. Also, we demanded a hearing within 24 hours according to Virginia Code 46.2-936. Alright? Now, in that code, if you read that code for Virginia, it says any officer violating any other provisions of this section shall be found guilty of misconduct in office and subject to removal therefrom upon complaint filed by any person in a court of competent jurisdiction. This section shall not be constructed to limit the removal of law enforcement officers or other misconduct in office. Okay? So pretty much what this is saying is, you asked for a hearing, the officer denied that. You are now going to file a complaint against that officer. Okay? You're going to file it before you go to court. You're going to file that complaint. You have the evidence, and you're going to file the complaint. Alright? What this does is two things. One, this puts the ball back in the officer's court. Okay? Also, it gives you a bargaining chip or some leverage. Okay? The officer now then has to decide whether or not this ticket is worth giving you. If the ticket is worth giving you, then you have the complaint on file in which he did not give you your hearing within 24 hours, and he can be found guilty of misconduct in his office. Okay? Most cops do not want this kind of stuff on their record at all. They don't want any kind of blemishes, anything that will stop them from moving up the chain of command or anything like that. A misconduct in the office is one little blip that they don't want there. So if the officer decides that this ticket's not worth it, he drops the ticket, then he also equally drops a complaint. Without the ticket, there is no complaint. You see how that works there? Without the ticket, there's no complaint. So you want to file the complaint that the officer did not give you your hearing within 24 hours. Again, you have it on video or audio. It's a win-win case for you, but ultimately you don't want to get the speeding ticket at all. Okay? Alright, next what you want to do is you obviously want a dismissal. Okay? So the only evidence that the cop has that you were speeding is the radar detector. You want to get that dismissed. You want to have it not admissible as evidence in court. Okay? So we're going to venture down into the Virginia Code a little further, and you're going to get to Virginia Code 46.2-882. This talks about determining speeds with various devices such as radar, LiDAR, microcomputer, pacing, those things. Okay? Reading this, you're going to get down to the second paragraph. I'll read that for you real quick. It says, in any court or legal proceeding in which a question arises about the accuracy of any laser speed determining device, radar, or microcomputer, all right, a certified copy or true copy thereof showing the calibration, that's one, showing the speedometer of any vehicle, tuning fork employed in calibrating or testing the radar, or any other method employed in calibrating or testing any laser speed determination device. Okay? No calibration or testing device shall be valid for longer than 6 months. Alright? The last part of that sentence was the most important. No calibration or testing of such device shall be valid for longer than 6 months. Okay? So when you go to court, alright, you're not going to, get into a battle with the officer asking how long he's been on the force, whether or not he's certified, because chances are he's either somewhat certified or the judge thinks he's certified enough to, shoot radar. What you're going to ask for is the radar calibration sheet. Okay, so the judge is going to call your name. You're going to plead not guilty. Okay, the officer is going to testify that he saw you speeding, he clocked you on radar, and he gave you a ticket. It will be your turn to question the officer. The questions you ask him are going to determine whether you either know what you're talking about or you don't know what you're talking about. You don't want to give an excuse here about you were sick or your grandma died or your dog died. The judge has heard it all before and nobody cares. Okay? What you are going to ask for is the evidence. Okay? You're going to ask to see the radar calibration sheet. Okay? For example, if you got your ticket on June 1st, or we'll say June 2nd, and the radar detector was last calibrated on January 1st, then any ticket after June 1st is inadmissible as evidence in court. See how that works? It's been longer than 6 months. So any radar that's been shot after that 6 months counts. They cannot use that as evidence. And since that's the only evidence that he has that you were speeding, if you can get that thrown out, you pretty much get your ticket thrown out. There is no gray area here. It's either within the 6 months or it's without the 6 months. Okay? So you ask to see the radar calibration sheet. Now, I've been to court and I've used this. And the very first time I used this, actually, the cop did have the radar detector sheet. He had it. He quickly flashed it to me. He gave it to the judge. The judge looked at it. The judge gave it back to the officer. And as he went to go put it away, I asked to see the radar detector calibration sheet myself. Okay, he was reluctant to hand it over, but when he did, I looked at it and had been without that 6-month range. And I looked at the judge and I said, hey, this is inadmissible as evidence. It's been longer than 6 months since his radar detector was calibrated. You can't use this as evidence. The judge asked if the cop had any other evidence that I was speeding. The cop didn't, because that's their only source of evidence, is the radar detector. And so they had no choice but to throw out the ticket. Okay? So, again, we are going to ask for to see the radar calibration sheet according to Virginia Code 46.2-882. All right? There's a couple other things that the cop has to have. He has to have, again, a certificate or true copy thereof showing the calibration or accuracy of, 1, the speedometer of any vehicle, that's his vehicle, any tuning fork employed in calibrating or testing the radar, and 2, any other method employed in calibrating or testing any speed determination device. He needs all 3 of those things, okay? Not just one, he needs all 3, okay? It's your job as a defendant and trying to get out of this ticket to hold them to that burden of proof, okay? They have to have it. If they don't have it, then they don't have a case, okay? So make sure to ask for those things. If you can't remember the code or you have court tomorrow, print out a copy of this code and bring it with you, okay? Again, we'll say that the officer does have his calibration calibrated and he is ready to go. He does have all these things in place. All right? It's unlikely, but say he does. Next, you want to discredit the officer himself as being competent in shooting the radar. Okay? Here, you're going to have to do a little bit of research yourself, but radar guns are not always accurate. They have cosine errors, beam reflection errors. Let's see what else. They have ghosting or shadow readings, anything like that. And those all can be affected by, where you are, if you're moving through traffic, the radio in his car. So you want to ask the officer questions about how the radar gun works. If he can't, accurately tell you how it works, then he's really unfit to be using the radar detector. Okay? So you're going to use that. You're going to make your case with the judge about how it was inaccurate. And you need to be confident. Stand up for your rights and know what you're talking about. That makes all the difference when it comes to court. If you don't know what you're talking about and you just say a code, then he's not going to let you off. You have to know how to apply these things to your case. Again, 46.2-882, the radar detector has to be calibrated within 6 months. If it's not, they can't use it as evidence against you in your radar ticket. All right, well, that's it. Again, hopefully the officer will drop the ticket because he doesn't want this blemish on the record because he didn't give you your court date within 24 hours, according to Virginia law. If he does decide to pursue it, you want to try to discredit the radar detector by using Virginia Code 46.2-882, checking to see if his radar has been calibrated within 6 months. If it's not, the evidence is inadmissible in court. If that doesn't work, you want to try to discredit the officer, asking him a series of questions whether or not he knows how to use a radar detector. Again, always plead not guilty, and that's it. And good luck with the court date.